Alexander the Great, born in 356 BC in Pella, Macedonia, was the son of King Philip II and Queen Olympias. From a young age, he was tutored by the great philosopher Aristotle, who instilled in him a love for knowledge and philosophy. Alexander's ambition was evident early on. He famously tamed the wild stallion Bucephalus, a horse no one else could ride. At the age of 20, following the assassination of his father, Alexander ascended to the throne of Macedon. He quickly consolidated his power, quelling rebellions in Greece with ruthless efficiency, most notably by razing the city of Thebes to the ground. With Greece under his control, Alexander turned his sights to the vast Persian Empire, a goal his father had long dreamed of. In 334 BC, he crossed the Hellespont with an army of around 48,000 men, a mix of Macedonians and Greek allies. His first major victory came at the Battle of the Granicus River, where he led a daring cavalry charge against the Persian forces. This victory opened up Asia Minor to his army, and many cities welcomed him as a liberator from Persian rule. In Gordium, he famously encountered the Gordian knot, an intricate knot that was prophesied to be untied only by the future king of Asia. In 333 BC, he faced the full might of the Persian army, led by King Darius III himself, at the Battle of Issus. Despite being heavily outnumbered, Alexander's brilliant tactics led to a decisive victory, and Darius fled the battlefield in disgrace. Following this victory, Alexander marched south, conquering the coastal cities of Phoenicia, including a 7-month siege of the island fortress of Tyre. He then entered Egypt, where he was hailed as a pharaoh and founded the city of Alexandria, which would become a great center of learning and culture. In the heart of the desert, he visited the oracle of Siwa, where the priests declared him the son of the god Zeus Ammon. With his divine status confirmed, Alexander marched into the heart of the Persian Empire, seeking a final confrontation with Darius. The two armies met at the Battle of Gaugamela in 331 BC, a battle that would decide the fate of the Persian Empire. Once again, Alexander's military genius prevailed, and the Persian army was utterly crushed. Darius fled again, only to be assassinated by his own satraps. Alexander was now the undisputed ruler of the Persian Empire, a territory that stretched from Greece to the borders of India. He adopted some Persian customs and encouraged his soldiers to marry Persian women, a policy aimed at uniting the two cultures. But his ambition was not yet satisfied. He dreamed of conquering the entire known world, which he believed ended in India. He faced fierce resistance from the Indian kingdoms, most notably from King Porus and his army of war elephants at the Battle of the Hydaspes. Alexander's army, though victorious, was exhausted and demoralized by the fierce fighting and the relentless monsoon rains. When his troops refused to march further east to the Ganges River, a disappointed Alexander was forced to turn back. The return journey was perilous, with a disastrous march through the Gedrosian desert, where many of his men died of thirst and exhaustion. In 323 BC, at the age of 32, Alexander the Great died in Babylon, the city he had planned to make the capital of his new empire. The cause of his death remains a mystery, with theories ranging from fever to poison. His vast empire, without a clear heir, was quickly torn apart by his ambitious generals, who carved out their own kingdoms from his conquests. Despite the short-lived nature of his empire, Alexander's legacy was profound and enduring. He spread Greek culture, language, and ideas throughout the East, ushering in the Hellenistic Age, a period of great cultural fusion and intellectual achievement. The cities he founded, especially Alexandria in Egypt, became centers of learning and innovation, preserving and advancing knowledge for centuries to come. Alexander the Great remains one of the most fascinating and influential figures in history, a military genius whose ambition and vision reshaped the ancient world. His story is a timeless tale of ambition, conquest, and the enduring power of a single individual to change the course of history. The name of Alexander the Great echoes through the corridors of time, a testament to a life lived on an epic scale. His military strategies are still studied in military academies around the world, a testament to his tactical brilliance. He was a master of logistics, able to supply his massive army in hostile territory, a feat that was as impressive as his victories in battle. His leadership inspired unwavering loyalty in his men, who followed him to the ends of the known world. He was not just a conqueror, but also a visionary who sought to create a new world, a fusion of East and West. His dream of a unified empire may have died with him, but his legacy of cultural exchange and intellectual curiosity lived on. The Hellenistic kingdoms that emerged from his empire continued to be centers of Greek culture for centuries. The story of Alexander the Great has been told and retold for over 2 millennia, a source of inspiration for leaders, artists, and dreamers. He was a complex and contradictory figure, capable of both great acts of generosity and shocking brutality. His life was a whirlwind of activity, a constant striving for greatness that left an indelible mark on the world. He was a man who dared to dream on a scale that few have ever imagined, and he had the will and the genius to make those dreams a reality. The legend of Alexander the Great is a powerful reminder that history is often shaped by the actions of a single, extraordinary individual. His influence can be seen in the art, architecture, and philosophy of the ancient world and beyond. He was a patron of the arts and sciences, and his conquests led to a great exchange of knowledge between different cultures. The story of his life is a journey into the heart of ambition, power, and the human desire for immortality. He was a man who lived and died by the sword, but his legacy was forged not just in battle, but also in the hearts and minds of the people he conquered. The world was never the same after Alexander the Great, a conqueror who shaped the ancient world and left a legacy that continues to inspire and fascinate us to this day. Philip's reforms of the Macedonian army, creating the formidable Macedonian phalanx, were a key factor in Alexander's later success. Alexander's relationship with his mother, Olympias, was complex and deeply influential. She was a fiercely ambitious woman who believed in her son's divine destiny. The assassination of Philip II in 336 BC was a pivotal moment, thrusting the young Alexander into a position of immense power and danger. Alexander's swift and ruthless elimination of his rivals for the throne demonstrated his political acumen and his willingness to use force to secure his position. The destruction of Thebes served as a brutal warning to other Greek city-states that might consider rebelling against Macedonian rule. Alexander's decision to spare the house of the poet Pindar during the destruction of Thebes showed his respect for art and culture, even in the midst of war. The League of Corinth, a federation of Greek states created by Philip II, provided Alexander with the legitimacy and the military resources to launch his invasion of Persia. The Persian Empire, though vast and wealthy, was weakened by internal divisions and the weak leadership of Darius III. The Battle of the Granicus was a risky gamble for Alexander, as he led his cavalry in a frontal assault across a river against a well-defended enemy position. Alexander's personal courage and his willingness to lead from the front were a major source of inspiration for his soldiers. The siege of Halicarnassus, a heavily fortified city, was another major challenge for Alexander's army, but his engineers proved to be masters of siege warfare. The capture of Darius's family after the Battle of Issus was a major propaganda victory for Alexander, and he treated them with great respect and courtesy. The siege of Tyre was a remarkable feat of engineering, as Alexander's army built a causeway across the sea to reach the island fortress. The fall of Tyre was a brutal affair, with the city's inhabitants being massacred or sold into slavery. Alexander's visit to the Oracle of Siwa was a shrewd political move, as it reinforced his claim to divine status and strengthened his legitimacy as a ruler. The founding of Alexandria was a visionary act, creating a new city that would become a beacon of learning, commerce, and culture for centuries. The Battle of Gaugamela was a tactical masterpiece, with Alexander using his smaller army to outmaneuver and defeat the much larger Persian force. The burning of Persepolis, the ceremonial capital of the Persian Empire, was a controversial act, with some historians arguing that it was an act of revenge and others that it was a deliberate political statement. The pursuit of Darius after Gaugamela was a relentless chase across the rugged terrain of ancient Persia. The death of Darius at the hands of his own men was a tragic end for the last king of the Achaemenid dynasty. Alexander's campaigns in Bactria and Sogdiana, in modern-day Afghanistan and Central Asia, were some of the most difficult of his career, as he faced fierce guerrilla resistance. The marriage of Alexander to Roxana, a Bactrian princess, was a political move designed to win the support of the local population. The invasion of India was a journey into a new and exotic world with strange customs, powerful kingdoms, and formidable armies. The Battle of the Hydaspes was a brutal and bloody affair, with Alexander's army facing the terrifying spectacle of King Porus's war elephants. Alexander's respect for King Porus after the battle, and his decision to restore him to his kingdom, was a mark of his magnanimity. The mutiny of his army at the Hyphasis River was a bitter disappointment for Alexander, forcing him to abandon his dream of conquering the entire world. The journey down the Indus River to the sea was a long and arduous one, with the army facing attacks from hostile tribes along the way. The march through the Gedrosian desert was a nightmare, with thousands of soldiers dying of thirst and heat exhaustion. The mass weddings at Susa, where Alexander and his generals married Persian noblewomen, were a symbol of his policy of fusion between the Greek and Persian cultures. The death of Hephaestion, Alexander's closest friend and companion, was a devastating blow to him, and he mourned him extravagantly. Alexander's plans for the future, which included the circumnavigation of Africa and the conquest of the Arabian Peninsula, were cut short by his untimely death. The succession crisis that followed Alexander's death, known as the Wars of the Diadochi, plunged his empire into decades of civil war. The Hellenistic kingdoms that emerged from the ashes of Alexander's empire, such as the Ptolemaic kingdom in Egypt and the Seleucid Empire in Asia, continued his legacy of cultural fusion. The city of Alexandria in Egypt became the intellectual and cultural capital of the Hellenistic world, with its famous library and museum. The legacy of Alexander the Great is a complex and multifaceted one, and he continues to be a source of fascination and debate for historians and the public alike. His life was a testament to the power of human ambition and the enduring impact that a single individual can have on the course of history. The early loss of his father, while tragic, propelled Alexander into a position where his own ambitions could be realized. His education under Aristotle was not limited to philosophy. It also included politics, ethics, and natural sciences, giving him a broad and comprehensive worldview. The story of Bucephalus is a powerful metaphor for Alexander's ability to tame the untamable, a skill he would later apply to the conquest of nations. The speed and decisiveness of his actions in the early years of his reign left his enemies in a state of shock and disarray. The concept of pothos, a Greek word for longing or yearning, is often used to describe the driving force behind Alexander's relentless ambition. His use of combined arms tactics, integrating infantry, cavalry, and siege engines, was revolutionary for his time. The companion cavalry, an elite unit of Macedonian nobles, was Alexander's personal strike force, and he often led them in person in the most critical moments of a battle. His ability to adapt his tactics to different enemies and terrains was a key factor in his unbroken record of victories. The logistical challenges of supplying his army in the vast and arid landscapes of the Persian Empire were immense, but his quartermasters were masters of their craft. His policy of founding new cities, named Alexandria in his honor, was a key part of his strategy for controlling his vast empire. The cultural fusion that he promoted, known as Hellenism, had a profound and lasting impact on the art, religion, and philosophy of the ancient world. His personal charisma and his ability to connect with his soldiers on a personal level were legendary. The Proskinesis controversy, in which he tried to introduce the Persian custom of prostrating oneself before the king, caused a great deal of resentment among his Macedonian troops. The murder of his old friend, Clytus the Black, in a drunken rage was a dark moment in Alexander's life, and he was filled with remorse afterwards. His belief in his own divinity, whether genuine or a political ploy, was a powerful tool for maintaining his authority. The exploration of the natural world was a passion for Alexander, and he sent many specimens of plants and animals back to his tutor, Aristotle. The influence of his conquests can still be seen today in the languages, cultures, and genetic makeup of the people of Central and South Asia. The romance of his story, with its tales of adventure, conquest, and exotic lands, has captured the imagination of people for centuries. He was a man of great contradictions, a philosopher king who was also a ruthless conqueror, a visionary who was also a pragmatist. The tales of his exploits, passed down through generations, have become a part of the world's collective mythology. His name is synonymous with greatness, a benchmark against which other leaders have been measured for centuries. The world that he created, a world of interconnected cultures and ideas, was the foundation upon which the Roman Empire and Western civilization were built. The search for his tomb, which has been lost to history, is a quest that continues to fascinate archaeologists and adventurers to this day. His life is a reminder that even the greatest empires are fleeting, but the power of ideas and culture can endure for millennia. Alexander the Great was more than just a conqueror. He was a force of nature, a man who bent the world to his will and left an indelible mark on the pages of history.